on CNN this morning or last night. Deedra, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Fine. Welcome to the show. Thanks for making time to be on. I know you're doing a lot of media, a lot of things going on. You did a great job on CNN last night. I was on right after you. I was watching you sitting next to Don Lemon, and Don was impressed. He's like, oh, she was good. I'm like, yep.
Well, people aren't expecting a strong woman that doesn't look like she's supposed to be.
Well, some people aren't. I have one in the studio right here, the woman who works on my show. She's a strong Muslim woman with a hijab who, believe me, is strong-willed and unbelievably difficult at the same time. But I love her. And so,
Deidra,
I know that. So tell me, first of all, before we get into the negative things, tell us why in April you decided to run for the United States Senate for the Democratic nomination.
I have been a civil rights and social justice activist for 15 years before I even became an attorney. I went all over Arizona talking to minority communities, bringing us together on common issues around social justice. Last year, what I saw was not just on the presidential level, but it was filtering down into the other political levels. Our elected leaders were constantly dehumanizing and targeting all kinds of communities, our fellow Americans. And I said, I have got to do something extraordinary to get us back united, to get us back into the conversations. Because my entire life, people were passionate about politics up until Election Day, and then they went home for Thanksgiving. And this year, there was no Thanksgiving for too many people. I decided to do something extraordinary, looked around, closed my law firm, and I finally said, you know what? This is what I need to do. I'm the one that holds politicians accountable. That's what I've done for over 15 years. Now it's time to be in the ring with them.
Well, that's great. And what are the key issues? I looked at your website. By the way, her website, Deedra's website is Deedra2018.com. That's DEEDRA 2018.com. Or if you go to on Twitter at Dean of Comedy, I just tweeted out the website and also the Twitter handle. So, Deidra, what are the key issues from your point of view that the people of Arizona are concerned about?
I think the number one issue that everyone in America is worried about, but especially Arizona too, is health care. It is not okay to throw people off of health care, take away what little we have. ACA was a stepping stone. It was never meant to be a perfection. It was meant to be a building block. Now we just want to tear down the building block and hurt people instead of building on it. We've got to build on it. We've got to move toward health care for all. Every industrialized country in the world has that, except for us. They're not smarter than we are. We can figure it out. I think number two is education.
Wait, can I just stop for a second? I couldn't agree with you more. We talked about this yesterday. I just went on for the Daily Beast 2 days ago. Democrats, this is the issue. Medicare for all. Start championing an issue and stand for something, Democrats, because we talked about it earlier in the show, Deidra. There's a Washington Post poll came out that showed that, stunningly, there's more enthusiasm by Trump supporters to vote in 2018 than there are for Democrats. Like, I don't know what more you need to be enthusiastic, but some Democrats say we're not giving them a reason, as opposed to just being anti-Trump, a reason to go forward. So I just think that's really great healthcare. I don't want to interrupt you, but...
No, I'm a proud, patriotic, freedom-loving Democrat. We are the Freedom Party. We are the ones that stand up for the little guy. We're the ones that make sure that we have fairness laws. We're the ones that make sure that unions are strong. We're the ones that stand behind marriage equality, because that is about the freedom to love. But we do not give those messages. We have abandoned the message that this is about freedom. All of these things. Healthcare is about freedom to have a quality life. You can't have a quality life if you can't get out of bed from an illness that could have been cured had you have been able to afford to go to the doctor. We're not giving these messages. Education. Education is the freedom to know what opportunities are out there for you. Those are important issues. We're not exciting people because we forgot what we stand for, and we forgot to deliver those messages.
I agree with you. And the people have been calling me on the show here, because we're on the Progress channel, so our listenership is progressives and some Trump trolls. That's what we have. But the progressives called up to Democrats, be bold or go home. And I actually put that line in my article from listeners. And what you're saying is exactly that. Like, we have to no longer be on the defensive and just fight for the status quo, but to go forward. And our party really has a history of that. So
right, and then another issue is the separation of church and state. We have gone into an unholy marriage between religion and government. We are allowing our elected officials to use their personal religious interpretation to pass laws that hurt us, that decide how women should control their own bodies. That is a freedom issue. There is nothing more intimate than my ability to decide what I put in my body. These are things that are important. We have to stand for them. We're not doing that.
I agree with you, and I love the way you're framing it as a freedom issue, all of these. And, of course, people on the right will say, well, you're a Muslim woman, you wear a hijab, you have to want to oppose Sharia law, which I get accused all the time, like I want to oppose Sharia law. It's insane. But I will tell them this. I've never heard Keith Ellison or Andre Carson, the two members of Congress who are Muslim, ever say that. But I have heard Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee say that we should change the Constitution to agree with the Bible, and that we can't change the Bible. We can change our laws to agree with the Bible. That's Christian Sharia law. And they get upset when I use that term. So you're right. I agree with you 100%. There's Christian law being imposed in America through laws about telling women what they can do with their bodies or birth control. And it's those on the right that want to impose Christian Sharia law who falsely accuse us of wanting to do the same but Islamic law. That's just not reality.
Anybody who's concerned about any kind of theocratic law in our government, I invite them to join me in building that wall. That's the wall we need. We need a stronger wall. It is being attacked on a daily basis, that wall between church and state, religion and government. That is the strongest law, the most important law, because you cannot have freedom of religion if your government is involved in religion. It's an unholy marriage, and it needs to get a divorce quickly.
I like that. Build that wall. And Mexico's going to pay for that wall. No, they're not going to pay for that one, but you know what I'm saying. So, Deidre, let's talk about, and to touch on this very thing, you wrote on your Facebook page for your campaign about separation of church and state 2 days ago. And this is where the firestorm began, the media storm. And part of what you wrote, and you had a picture of the U.S. Constitution, and you wrote, in their infinite wisdom, the founding fathers decreed that this nation would be separate church and state, and in doing so, protect both institutions. Government would be free from religious overreach, and religion would be free from government interference. Beautiful sentiment. I love it. I'm a liberal. I think that all our laws should be based on public policy and secular concerns, not religious based. I don't want to hear anyone's religion being basis for our laws. The result is, though, you got hate spewed at you. So let's take a step back. When you announced your campaign in April, were you subject to any anti-Muslim bigotry, like online from people or in your face?
Of course I was. I mean, online. When I announced, I have traveled all over Arizona. I haven't encountered any of it. I'm not saying that it's not here. I mean, I know that some people do have this in the grocery store. I haven't encountered it, but online, when I announced, of course we had it, and I expected it. I expected for exactly what happened now to happen. That's what happens when you have any character trait that is not the norm or considered other. Being a woman would have been enough. Not this much. Being a woman would have been enough. Being a person of color would have been enough. Being a Jewish woman would have been enough. Being a Sikh with a turban would have been enough. There are all kinds of character traits that we have otherized in our society, and our society has failed since last year when it was required for us to stand up and say, that is not what our country looks like. Those people do not represent us. And I knew that when I got in this campaign, the first thing I was going to do was have that conversation, because I knew I would pull those people out of the woodwork and we'd have to face them. Because most people pretend that it's just a couple of jerks and we need a thicker skin. We have a thick skin. We're tired of the larger society ignoring what's going on in society.
So at your events, have you had any people say things or not ask questions? I'm sure you're happy to answer questions, but make accusations or spew any kind of vile garbage?
The only time we had that at one of our events, and I do 1, 2, and 3 events a day since April.
Wow.
The only time that we've had that happen is when the Fraternal Order of the Alt Knights and the Proud Boys found out that we were having an event here in the city, and they decided to have a rally against it. But we told the police to let them stay on the private property, have their hour of freedom of speech, so we could show them that they were not going to intimidate us. After an hour, the police told them they needed to go to public space. They all went home.
The little Proud Boys went home and cried like babies. They just wrote an article about me, the Proud Boys, like an hour ago. It just came out right before the show, attacking me. They are just pieces of work. And they get upset when you call them a bigot, the little snowflakes that they are.
But we're facing it. I want to tell you one more thing. We're facing it. When Act for America decided to have the anti-Sharia law, or the anti-Sharia rally, which is really just a fest of people who hate Muslims and want all Muslims to die. We had one in Phoenix. My reaction was, I called for a love fest. We had people all over Maricopa County. We had people come from Tucson, which is almost 2 hours away. They came up here. We had rainbow flags. We had love banners. We had rainbow hats. We had everything you could imagine associated with love, and we marched around where they were, not where they were. We marched around where they were, demonstrating love, because love wins over hate, no matter how long it takes.
And that's a great way of putting it. I'm chatting with Deedra Abboud. She's a lawyer. She's seeking a Democratic nomination for the U.S. Senate seat in Arizona to take on Senator Jeff Flake. So that brings us to Jeff Flake and what happened here. And I actually wrote an article for CNN yesterday talking about your story, but I think for the first time ever praising a Republican. In fact, on air yesterday, after you were up, I was on with a Republican, and I said, Don, this is breaking news. Wake up, Wolf Blitzer. I'm going to praise a Republican. This is really important. So after you wrote the statement about founding fathers and separation of church and state, which is so important, the reaction was not what I would have expected. It was these right-wingers going crazy. And can you share a little bit of what you were subjected to?
Just about everything a person with an identity that makes them an other is subjected to on a daily basis. It was just ramped up. They use different words because I'm Muslim, but the words they used mainly were, that I don't belong here, I need to go home, even though a lot of things they were posting on said that I was from Arkansas.
Right.
That I had crazy things. People saying that I was transgender, weight issues, ugly, whore, lots of C words.
Wow.
I haven't heard this kind of language, I think, since I was in high school. and we had the Facebook blocker for the profanity. That was the only thing that we were trying to hide. And the Facebook blocker for profanity, by the way, even though we had it on the highest level, was a useless algorithm. But we just gave up on that. And we just said, you know what? Let them go out and have their filth. Because society needs to know that that's their neighbors. We are family, we are friends, we are neighbors. We have forgotten that, and we have lost compassion. We need to start talking to each other again.
And I think that's a great way of putting it. You have to sometimes, and I think it was Justice Louis Brandeis who said the greatest disinfectant is sunlight. And I think for too long in America, some of these extreme voices we thought were just on the fringes of the country, but they're actually not mainstream. We're fighting against that, but there are more of them than we thought. I think it's important people see it and make a choice. Is the America you want a pluralistic nation that celebrates our diversity and really the idea of e pluribus unum on our seal, which says for many one, that you believe in that our founding fathers wrote? Or do you want to be a nation that truly is for white male Christians, that's really what they want, and tolerating other groups and demonizing others? So what happened, the reason there was big headlines, Senator Jeff Flake, the guy you want to run against and beat, and I hope you do beat him, even though he did this nice thing, tweeted out, sorry, he said no room for Muslims. No, some of the hate you got were like no rooms for Muslims. He tweeted out, Senator Flake, hang in there to your Twitter name. Sorry you have to put up with this. Lots of vulnerable people across Arizona. You'll find them. What was your reaction when Senator Flake tweeted that out?
I was surprised, and then I was a little bit upset that I was surprised, because that's actually what I expect from our elected leaders. And if our elected leaders had stood up last year and said that the things that were going on, that were attacking and dehumanizing our American neighbors, if our elected leaders had stood up then and talked about this, if they had stood up then and said this is not right, then I wouldn't even be running. There's a million other things I could do to make the world a better place. But they didn't. They haven't. They continued not to do it. Representative Stephen King, on a daily basis practically, attacks some minority group, and nobody says a word. The administration, same thing. Nobody says a word. It is time for our elected leaders to actually lead. We do not pay them to help us feel inferior.
And I agree with you.
But I did appreciate it. I did appreciate that he did it. I just want more of it.
I agree. My article was drawing a contrast between Jeff Flake and Donald Trump. Jeff Flake stood up to bigotry here. Donald Trump has spewed bigotry. This is a man who trafficked in sexism, racism, and bigotry to get to the highest office in the land, in Donald Trump. And even when he was asked by Jake Tapper point blank, do you denounce David Duke? He pretended he didn't know David Duke, even though years before he talked about David Duke, he didn't know what the Klan was. And it took a media firestorm for Donald Trump to finally denounce white supremacists. And the reason is he needs the white supremacists. They're part of his base. They're not his entire electorate by any stretch, but they are part of his base, and he does not want to lose them. So to me, Donald Trump is, Jeff Flake was a profile in leadership. Donald Trump is a profile in hate-mongering.
Right. And it is not okay that our elected leaders are willing to give up their values in order to keep their job. We need them to do their job, and their job includes leadership. Their job includes making sure that people among their constituency are not attacked by them or their colleagues. They have that responsibility. It's a moral responsibility, and we pay for it every time that we pay taxes.
I couldn't agree with you more. So, by the way, do you think if Donald Trump came out now, and this was sort of a discussion I had with Don Lemon last night after you got off air, if Donald Trump came out now and denounced anti-Muslim bigotry, and even said, look, I made some statements on the campaign like Islam hates us, and thousands of Muslims cheered in New Jersey on 9/11, which was a lie, even Rudy Giuliani said it wasn't true. Do you think if he made a statement at this point, it could help a little bit with some of his supporters to say, like, oh, I shouldn't feel as good as I do about spewing anti-Muslim hate? Or do you think it's empty words?
Baby steps are better than no steps, but it would take more than one statement. He ignored when the man in Seattle got murdered. He ignored so many incidents across the United States, but he didn't just attack Muslims. He attacked Mexicans. He attacked Native Americans practically. He has attacked women. He has attacked the LGBT community. He's intentionally trying to erase an entire community by not even having them on the website and trying to make sure there are no fairness laws. Do you know that there are no federal laws that protect people who got married who are the same gender to move into a house without discrimination? There are no federal laws for that.
Is that something you would champion if you were in the Senate?
I would sure champion that. We have to have fairness laws. The government has a moral obligation to take care of its people in that way. The government is the only people who can make sure that fairness laws are enforced. That moral obligation that we pay for, that they sign up for when they get elected and when they take that oath, they have said, we are going to make sure that you are part of us. That you, whether you elected us, whether you donated, you are American, you live here, you are going to be treated fairly.
Well, Deedra, I sincerely wish you the best. What would you say in closing here, because you're in the Democratic primary, so you're running to win that nomination to take on Jeff Flake. What would you say to progressives listening who live in Arizona, who live in your state right now, and are deciding which candidate to support for the Democratic nomination for the U.S. Senate in 2018?
The most important thing that I think this incident we can get out of it is that we as candidates in Arizona can be the leaders in showing how you can run a campaign, you can be competitive, you can work hard, you can do everything you need to make sure that everybody knows you're the best, but you would never attack another candidate based on traits and characteristics that make them different from you. We can be the leader in that. We can change the entire country's dialogue just by our candidates right now doing that. With Flake's tweet and the way that I react, we have shown we can do it. And we can expect all of our candidates in Arizona to do it too.
And I hope that you guys really are the example that changes things, because I couldn't agree with you more, Deedra, the idea that we should disagree on policy, and we can have spirited debates about higher taxes or low taxes, bigger government, the health of Medicare for all or not. But when it comes to bigotry and sexism and racism, it's the one thing that on the left and the right we should stand together, because it's not partisan. It's not Democrat or Republican. It's right or wrong. And we should no longer say we're going to tolerate it. And there are leaders out there that Donald Trump tolerated and actually did more than tolerated. He spewed but Deedra, I sincerely wish you the best. I'd love to have you check in with us. Let us know how the campaign's going. When's the primary date for you?
I think it's August 28th of next year.
So you got a lot of running to do. Oh, my gosh. So I
got in early. I got a lot to do. I got a lot of ground to cover, and I plan to cover it.
So, Deedra2018.com, DEEDRA 2018.com. If you want to find out about her more, if you're in Arizona, you want to volunteer or get on her campaign, there it is. Also, Twitter handle is Deedra2018. It's on my Twitter feed at Dean of Comedy. Check it out. Deedra, thanks for coming on. I'd love to have you on again. You're a great candidate, and you really make me proud. So keep the fight out there. You're doing a great job.
That's the plan. Thank you.
Take care. So, folks, take a quick break. We'll come back. I'll take your calls right to the top of the hour. You're my guest here on the Dean Obeidallah Show.